What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the Wise Take MLB DFS Wise Stream. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I am joined once again by the GOAT, the true OG of the Wise Take Nation, if you will. Mr. Paulie D. You can find him on Twitter at Paulie with 8 of them bitches. Paulie, what's happening?
What's up?
Nothing, man.
We're here.
We're here, thank God.
It's canceled. It's still on.
That's it. Summer's canceled. Pretty much everything else in the world is canceled, but not baseball. Not yet. Not yet. So we'll see what happens. I know that's the thing, bro. Even like because of the way the world is right now, how split everything is, like even a conversation about whether the league should stay open or not becomes political. You know what I'm saying? Like even that, we can't even just have a normal conversation. Well, I personally think because then, okay, so you're siding with those people. It's like, no, I'm not siding with nobody. like, I'm just like, this is what I think, you know. But obviously, right now, you and I, from our perspective, as guys that work in this industry and use, and are counting on this kind of stuff to kind of keep people fed and things like that, we're grateful that the MLB is playing. I can't say that if the players didn't feel comfortable playing at this point that I would blame them. I get it. Like, I get to work from home, so I totally understand it. But at the same time, I'm grateful. That's all I can say is I'm grateful that they are continuing to play, at least as of now.
Yeah, ditto. And I just hope that it hangs on. And I think that's like very, very fragile right now. I think like another team comes up with 5 or 6 guys and, another game's canceled and it just like messes with the whole schedule. It doesn't just affect one team like the Marlins, it affected the team that they just played, the team that they are playing, the team that their opponent that they just played is playing. It's like has a big trickle effect. So,
100%, man. And
a lot of play. Who knows?
Absolutely. You hit it on the head. And what it comes down to, like, you can't tell me that there's no way for people to do these things without, risk. I mean, like I said, KBO has been playing for months with no fans, something like that, no problem. They actually let fans in their arenas, like a small percentage of fans in their arenas today. And so this comes down to the players themselves ultimately not being responsible enough, not taking it seriously enough, going and doing whatever the fuck they want to do. I mean, I would assume, it's possible that something happened, but all it takes is that one player, man. There was that one dude in the Marlins, and the Reds had a similar situation with Matt Davidson. Matt Davidson, who's on the Reds, by the way, he got diagnosed, or he tested positive for COVID a day after he had just spent the entire game in the dugout with his teammates. So, who fucking knows? You know what I'm saying? It's like, who fucking knows? Your Yankees, man, they were at risk, bro. Like they didn't stay at the same hotel, thankfully. But had they gone to that ballpark today, who fucking knows, man? I don't know anything about this COVID. There's too much misinformation going on anyway. It's just wildness. A lot of the nation in the chat are blaming the Miami guys. I see our boy Aaron Cameron saying he thinks the Miami players are full of it. They need to follow the rules. Our boy Frank Corona saying Marlins doing too much partying at the beaches. It's true, bro. It's true. America's been caged up, and they're running wild.
It's South Florida. I'm part of the problem down here.
You're part of the problem, baby. Let's go. It's just it is what it is, man. And I get it, right? Like, you keep everybody all cooped up. America, the place of rights. You can't take my rights. Like, I understand it. I understand it 100%. But unfortunately, at this particular moment, the funny thing is, they're saying that the Marlins players didn't even catch it in Florida, right? Like, they were just in Philly. They think they caught it in Atlanta, actually. Apparently, they were in Atlanta before they went to Philly, and they're pretty sure that they caught it in Atlanta. So it's funny. Yeah.
They went to City too, William.
That's what happened. That Luke, hey.
Wings. Everyone that knows me knows that those are my favorite wings. Like, come on.
Yes, you just take the wings, you put them in between two butt cheeks, and they're just glorious. Oh yeah, that's just wonderful. But anyway, man, we got a slate to break down, COVID or no COVID. So hopefully the people that are diagnosed are all right. I know Eduardo Rodriguez actually, like, he was one of the first players that got diagnosed positively, and he has like a heart issue that's related to COVID. So for some people, of course, for most people it seems to not be a big deal, but for some people it really does hurt. It really does affect them. So shout out to those who are testing positive, and hopefully we wish them a speedy recovery. And hopefully the Reds are not, nobody else catches this shit and we get a season going. If not, we got basketball starting on Friday. Not to be cold-hearted, but it's the truth. And we got to do what we got to do from a business perspective. With that said, we're going to go ahead and jump in here. We got some pitchers to discuss. The pitching pool is horrendous today. We lost the one guy that I was kind of hanging my hat on was Pablo Lopez. We lost him pretty early, but I've had some time obviously to dig and you know and see what I can find. Paulie, I'm curious to hear your takes. Talk to me about pitchers, cash games, tournaments, everything. Who are you looking to roll the dice with?
Yeah, bro. It's ugly for pitching right now, dog. The guys up top that are feel like, safer, but you're spending so much, i.e. Mike Foltanowicz, Aaron Savale, Dylan Ceesay. Glass now I think is going to be massive chalk, and Atlanta did play late yesterday, then they had to travel, so, that's a positive. I think Glasnow's the best pitcher on this slate, but I don't like that he's going to be 60% owned in my opinion. So I'll probably use him on one of three at this point. He's standing out by a lot. The industry likes Josh James. I understand. It's Seattle, right? I don't think it's as bad as most of the industry thinks. They put up runs in 2 of the 3 games this weekend. But he does have big strikeout upside, so those 2 guys up there at 9K, I don't mind, but I'm really more interested on some of these flyers loading up on some bats. That's going to be the theme. You're never going to believe this, but I got interest in Mike Wacha. I don't think Boston is that good, especially against righty. The lineup is just really not very, very good, and I'm hoping that he can kind of stay out of trouble against Devers and JD and the rest of the lineup. I think he can do all right with. He did keep the ball down. I wish the game was in New York, but I'll take him in his New York debut at 2% ownership. Mike Montgomery, Detroit bats have a high projected total, but I think this guy at 6'5" can get you a 15. That's all you're going to want. That's all you're going to need. Wade Miley against the Cubs, same thing. He's 6K. There's not much to choose from, and then the really cheap guys, Kendall Graveman, I'm even willing to take a shot on against Houston, but it's ugly. It's ugly out there. I understand. I think you can get Josh James and Glasnow together and have a healthy lineup. That's fine. But I'm looking to pay down. I may take a shot on Michael Fulmer at 6.5 as well. I just like the guys below 8K. I'm just going to kind of pick my spots. Obviously not Zach Godley. Don't do that to yourself. But anybody else down here, Stephen Brault, I'd be willing to take a shot on at 4.3. Well, I'm looking to punt the pitching position basically and pay up for that.
I normally I would not disagree with that strategy, and I'm not even to say I disagree with that today. My issue today is that a lot of these punt guys that I was considering are expected to only be in a couple innings. Fulmer's just opening, right, coming off of an injury. They expect him to go 2-3 innings max. We've got even what's his name, the Pittsburgh guy, Steve Brault. He's going to be splitting today with Chad Kuhl, so they're going to do a double team kind of deal. And listen, that could mean 4 or 5 innings apiece for all we know. We have no idea how this is going to look. These coaches have never been in this situation before. They've never used these arms in a situation before, so everything traditional is kind of out the window. So part of me is yeah, well, if they're all going to be limited, why not just punt the position? The other part of me is looking at this you know what, man, I think I'm gonna take the 3 guys of Glasnow, and even Glasnow. The note on him basically said they're gonna take it inning by inning, whatever the fuck that means. You know what I'm saying? And you combine that with the high ownership, it makes me nervous. 2 guys that I'm looking at: Josh James, obviously number 1, because from what I've read, he's pretty stretched out. I'd be surprised if he didn't go at least 80 pitches, if not the full 100. He's playing Seattle. He's gonna be chalk. I accept that. But I think the other guy that I'm kind of curious on is Adrian Houser. And he's another one that could very easily just kind of slip through and only get 3 or 4 innings. The Brewers have been like that. But he's another one that has good numbers. He seems relative on DraftKings, he's relative in that mid-range. On FanDuel, he's kind of a pivot off of Josh James, who's 6'7" over there. It's interesting because on FanDuel, you don't even need those guys. Like, the pricing is so soft for a lot of the stacks. You don't even necessarily need Josh James at 6'7". So I'm curious how the ownership plays out on FanDuel. But I'm with you for the most part. It's obviously a terrible pitching slate. I'm going to use some glass now, but as of right now, I'm the same thing as you. I'm looking at a 1 out of 3 on both sites. Josh James is the pitcher I'm probably going to have the most of, and then Houser's the guy that I'm working on the in-between, just hoping I get that right as a pivot from glass. Now, other than that, I'm just not messing around with pitcher all that much. I think that if I didn't have so much value with the bats, I'd be more inclined to punt more of these pitching options, but simply because I think there's a lot of value with the hitting. I mean, the whole Kansas City offense, we'll talk about them a little bit later, they're all just dirt cheap, and basically a bullpen game against the Tigers. So I'm probably going to go that route. Like you said, not overthink the pitching, just take the guys that I think are at least decent, and then just try my best to get it with the bats in that combination. Patio Joe in the chat wanted me to ask you about Anibal Sanchez for the FanDuelers.
That's ugly.
Yeah, it's ugly. I kind of like the Toronto Bats, to be honest, for FanDuel.
Yeah.
You know, like, how I play when you see me in the streets, you know? With that said, Paulie,
I think
I'm sorry.
Got on Trent Thorpe, in that game.
You know what? That's not a bad idea, and he's another one. He's like 6'5", you know.
And watching him lineup is just awful. There's not a ton of strikeouts in it, but they're not going to put up a ton of runs either.
Right, for sure. All right, let's move over to some of these bats. Now, this is where things can get kind of interesting. Oh, I should say this. I see a lot of people asking about Savali and some of these other guys, and I didn't even address. I need to address the weather. There is some risky weather, and that does have an impact on why I didn't want exposure to certain pitchers. But so Cincinnati hosting the Cubs. They think, or the meteorologist Kevin Roth seems to think that it's going to be a late start in play. So he has a yellow-orange right now, but there is obviously some risk, some delay risk. I'm not interested in either of those pitchers anyway. The Savali game, we've got the White Sox and Cleveland, and these are actually two of the more decent pitchers, not the best, but two of the more decent pitchers on the slate. My issue here is obviously the weather. He says, oh boy, I can honestly see this going either way. There's a little clearing here where we could squeeze in some baseball, especially if we want to play through light rain, but he could also see a scenario where a couple of heavier batters go over the ballpark and it just isn't dry enough for long enough. So that kind of is why I'm not trying to play that game with the pitching. It's one thing to give it a shot with the bats. I don't want to play that game with the pitching in that game. So just to answer, I saw a couple people in the crowd. I don't want you guys to think I'm ignoring you. That was the reason that I wasn't really big on Savali or the other side. Plus, the White Sox are a team that I'm not trying to fuck with right now. Cease, Savali, neither of these offenses do I want to pick on right now. Neither of them. I don't want to pick on the White Sox right now. I don't want to pick on Indians right now.
I would be a lot more inclined to use Dylan Cease though if we did have those guys.
Yes, yeah. Well, I agree with you in that I'm assuming that you believe that Cease is just a better actual pitcher, right? Like, forget about matchup. Yeah. He's just a better actual pitcher. I think so anyway. Could be wrong.
Yeah, that lineup takes a dip after Franmil Reyes.
Oh yeah, dude. And the White Sox, man, that lineup is fucking. They look good, man. They look really fucking good. Shout out to you, Paulie. You've been saying from the beginning, keep an eye on them, and they've been doing dirties on the nightly. For sure. All right, let's move over to the bats now. Nation, if you have any questions, I'll try to work them in between. What's up, you got some?
One more thing I'm pitching, I actually don't mind grabbing Fulte and then punting the second guy on DraftKings. He's the most expensive. I don't think many people are going to go there. I think people are going to like even the idea of picking on him. And there's strikeouts in this Tampa Bay lineup. Jose Martinez, Hunter Renfroe, although Renfroe is a GOAT, but, tough stadium. Zunino, Willie Adames. And because he's the most expensive, I don't think he's going to be that. I think he's going to be 6 to 8% owned, even on this ugly slate. And I actually think that that's kind of interesting. You punt the second guy with whoever you want down there for cheap, and then pair it up with Mike Fulte. That's kind of growing on me.
You may not even have to punt that second one, bro, if you get the right offense. Some of these offenses are cheap, but that's a good point about Fulte. And I can tell you right now, nobody's going to play him. And the reason nobody's going to play him is, number one, he's coming off a year where he was riddled with injury, and number two, the Braves have been very outspoken about not letting their guys go deep. And we've seen Soroka and basically all their pitchers so far haven't pitched more than 70 pitches. What's his name? The first one that went. What's his fucking name? Not Soroka, the other guy. Oh, no, I think it was Soroka, actually. Soroka It was Soroka and then Newcomb, I think. So Soroka went 6 innings, and they pulled him. He only had 70 pitches. He has 69 pitches, and they pulled him. He went 6 innings with 69 pitches. So they've been effective, and a lot of that has to do with the Mets just sucking on offense right now. But they've been effective, and if you think about it on FanDuel especially, that quality start could come at a premium. So like if Fulte can reach the 6 innings even on 70 pitches, that could really help if Glasnow only goes 4 or 5, and they were kind of neck and neck, and no other pitcher happens to reach that threshold. It's a possibility. I mean, you got some shitty pitchers on the slate. Everybody seems to be on a short leash, so I don't hate the idea of the Fulte on either side, but especially on FanDuel. It's kind of interesting. Again, I'm only expecting 70 pitches, but there's a scenario where the offense he's against just doesn't get it done. It's a pitcher's park, right? It's the Rays. They're very consistent. So I don't hate it. I don't love it, and I'm spending too much time talking about it. That's what I end up doing. That's me all day. But I don't hate it, Paulie. I think it's an interesting idea. Let's talk about some bats, Paulie.
The Mets.
If Paulie likes the Mets, I've been waiting. That's all I needed to know. I was like, I can't like the Mets unless I know Paulie's on the Mets because I'm fucking biased. So I need to wait till Paulie's the one. All right, good to hear it. Let's go.
Zach Godley's opening, I'm expecting 6 runs in the first.
I think he's the long reliever today, Paulie.
I'm seeing the primary guy, but I could be wrong.
It's Josh Osich is a lefty. He's starting the game. Josh Osich.
Sure.
He's the starter. But Godley's coming in, and we're talking about Godley eating innings.
I get that's even better.
Yeah,
that's even better. But I get it. So the way RotoWire is putting these guys is they're putting the guy who's actually supposed to. The primary pitcher is the guy that they're putting. They're not putting the opener. I see. Well, so maybe they only score like 2 or 3 in the first, but then we get Godley for whatever, and we always pick on Zach Godley. The Mets really haven't gone off yet. This is the perfect park, the perfect scenario, and the Red Sox bullpen is god awful. Like, it's gotten worse. I like the Mets bats, number 1 on the slate. I like the Braves bats as like a leverage play against Tyler Glasnow. I don't like that they traveled after playing the late game, but that's more leverage against the field. Like yesterday, I knew I should attack the Philly pitcher. I knew he was going to be popular, and instead I used him, and he got lit up. Like, I just think Tyler Glasnow is going to be very popular, and that doesn't take much to talk you into using the Braves. So I'm into the Braves bats as leverage. I like the Tigers bats. I think you can use Montgomery as a punt pitcher, but if you're not using him, all in for attacking him. I like Nico Goodrum, CJ Crone, Austin Romine at catcher, Miggy Cabrera, Scope, all those guys. Jacoby Jones, I wish he was batting higher in the order, but I'll take him even batting 9th. I like that kid a lot. Houston, I think another team that'll be popular. I'm going to use Kendall Graveman on a team, I think, but Houston's another offense that you can kind of justify playing at any time. But the Mets are my favorite offense by a lot, and if the White Sox do end up playing, I do like the White Sox bats, but that's probably going to be an everyday thing. Who else is out here? That's like it. I like the Braves for leverage. And then the weather, if we do get a game in Cincinnati, the weather tool is saying that's like a massive boost for offense. I'd get behind Cincinnati bats for sure against John Lester.
Yeah, man. The Mets are my favorite offense too. Like I said, I had to wait for the Paulie D blessing to be able to do it. I'm a Met fan, so sometimes I get a little antsy. And like, listen, last night in my head, I saw that line against the Braves on Sunday Night Baseball, and I was like, no way should Porcello be favored in this game. No fucking way. And so I'll admit it when I think something's wrong. Today, I looked at this and I said, what am I missing here? You got the Mets in a very good hitting park, huge upgrade for them, good hitting environment, and they're going to see mostly Zach Godley. I know the Mets personally are good. I don't know them personally. Them personally, they personally are pretty good at hitting sinkers and those kind of sinking, diving kind of pitches. Good at hitting curveballs. Any pitches that breaks down. That's where the Mets' forte is. They got a lot of low ball hitters. I don't know why Cespedes isn't playing. that hurt my feelings just a little bit. But it is what it is. I still think like some of these guys, and that's the thing, like the Mets are really expensive on DraftKings, so I don't know how popular. Sure, Pete Alonso and like the obvious players maybe, but Conforto lefty on lefty to start, but not really gonna be lefty on lefty. That's the other thing. Don't ignore the lefties just because when you look at whatever source you're looking at, it might say lefty lefty because that guy's just an opener. So Michael Conforto is like $5K over there. On FanDuel, they're not so expensive. But I think it kind of works in turn because if Josh James is expensive on FanDuel, if Josh James ends up popular on FanDuel, then people are going to have a ton of money to pay up for all these expensive stacks like Houston and whoever else they might want to. So I'm curious on how the ownership ends up on both sides. They're differently priced, but the sites are just different. On DraftKings, you kind of really need the value because if you are going with Glass now or the lowest you're going is Houser, you're still spending at least $8K and over for a pitcher. You're still kind of tight on money. On FanDuel, it's the opposite. You go with Josh James, you can afford whatever you want. You don't even need the Mets who are cheap over there. So I do like the Mets on both sites. After that, I think the Cincinnati Cubs game also very interesting. I don't mind Boston on the other side of that. I'm not a huge Walker guy, but like you said, if you actually try to build a Boston team, after you get a certain point, you're just like, what am I doing? Like you're cooking something. The players just aren't as exciting without Mookie Betts. It's just he kind of completed it. On FanDuel, it's a little easier to build, right? You got Devers, Bogarts, JD, and you just pick one other, asshole or whatever. But on DraftKings, when you're trying to come up with 5 players, it's kind of you kind of start getting into the you got to break the knee pads out type shit. After that, the Cincinnati Cubs game I do like a lot. I like the Cincinnati side just because I think they'll be a little overowned. I mean, some of these guys like Castellanos is huge lefty masher. What's the other guy? Aquino, is that his name? It's like something. The outfielder. Yes. Also, last year showed us a ton of power, especially
Suarez.
Right, man. They got Suarez. They got. I think there's a couple other people. I'm even that Irvin dude. He's like only good against lefties. Yeah. That's the only. So I do like them as well. I'm not going to talk about every team. The last team I'll mention, and again, like you said, the hitting conditions. It's a small park, and they have phenomenal hitting conditions out there in Cincinnati. And then the last team I'll mention, and this was really for value. I think the game in general could blow up. We have 2 bad pitchers, 2 bad bullpens, but it's the Kansas City side of that game. And specifically on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I didn't really need them a ton, but on DraftKings, they were kind of my glue team. Sal Perez is 2,900 batting 4th against Fulmer, who's only going to open, and then you got a whole Detroit bullpen. Adalberto Mondesi is 3,500 over. This is a 5K player last year, almost pretty much the whole year. He's 3,500. So there were some pricing inefficiencies. Ryan O'Hearn's 2,300, batting like 5th or some shit like that. So if you did need the cheapies to make these guys work, and that's how I made some of the Mets stacks work, because the Mets are very expensive on DraftKings. I just plugged in some of these Kansas City Royal guys around them, doing dirties and dropping albums. We got some questions.
I like
go ahead.
I like the Royals. I think that's a good call, and no one's going to be on them either.
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't think that right, because I mean, who the fuck wants to play the Royals? I don't know if people even realize how cheap they are, but like Mondesi at least give me that. Mondesi should not. He's no $3,500 player. Like that's blasphemy. A guy with stolen base upside and everything else. Like that sounds wrong.
How much is Chad Cool?
How much is Chad Cool?
Yeah, I mean I know he's not starting, but if he's like 4K, like
he's 8,200. Chad Cool.
Oh my goodness.
8,200 for the smooth sounds of Chad Cool. I know Joey's going nuts somewhere. Well, he's in the chat. He's going nuts.
He's got more money left on the table than like ever in his life, and he plays on FanDuel, which that makes more sense.
Yeah. He's probably pitching Josh James or something like that. Yeah.
I had a lot of that this weekend, and it worked out for me. I had a couple sweats this weekend actually in baseball. None of them actually got there, but I made money all 3 days so far.
Yeah.
And a lot of my teams, I had like 800 left on the table, just like because I was stacking. I wasn't gonna just because I had the money go take someone from another team. I was sticking with my 5, and I think in baseball it's absolutely fine, especially on the smaller slates. Not that this is that small, but we're down to 7 games now.
Yeah, I think so. It's 9, 7 or 9.
It was 9.
It was
right?
9.
But then we lost Philly.
Okay, yeah.
And
true, 7.
Yeah,
so 8 on FanDuel, right?
Yeah. So yeah, leaving money on the table totally fine. I think in baseball, I have no problem with it.
I 100% agree with you. Matter of fact, for people who do hand-built teams and people who do MME teams, those of you who use an optimizer, and you, unless you're like on it and you're really on top of the settings and making sure it doesn't leave any salary on the table, if you keep track, you'd be surprised how many of your best teams usually have more money left on the table than you would have done. And a lot of times that could be a separator on what holds you back. Like, oh, I never get the right team. It's because you constantly looking to upgrade this player and that player. Sometimes you just need some correlation in your life. And if the best player is $500 cheaper, go with the fucking best player. You don't have to spend just because he's more expensive. That's DraftKings' opinion that he is worth more. What do you think he is worth?
Right.
For sure. We got some questions. We got a question here from Elliot. Will Montgomery get a full workload if he's not blown up? So if Montgomery doesn't get the dirty done to him, is he capable, as far as pitching leash goes, to do that dirty?
Let me see what they let their starters do this weekend. Montgomery walked 6, nice strikeouts over.
I don't see anything that says he wouldn't.
Yeah.
I didn't mention him. I hate to say it, but like if put it this way, I'm not playing him because I'm only doing 3 teams on each site, so I didn't have room for him. But if you told me I'm going with him as an SP2 on DraftKings, I wouldn't necessarily say, "Oh, that's great," but I wouldn't talk you off of him. I wouldn't be like, "Oh, well, that's your problem." I would just be like, "Okay, fuck it, yeah, punting, okay, I get it." You know, he's probably one of the better punts out there as far as it is the Tigers. I don't love him personally. I lean more towards the Tiger bets, like Paulie said. But like, if somebody came to you, Paulie, like, could you really? Because you don't got a replacement for him. So if they came to you on DraftKings and was like, "Yo, my SP2, I'm punting with this guy," it's like, okay, if you're not playing the Tiger bats, I guess so. You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of like, chill and be chill. That's like, I got nothing on that.
I prefer to take a righty against the Tigers, though. I don't like a lefty against them.
Yeah, no, I feel you all day. Yeah, I agree that traditionally they've been a lefty mashers. I know they're a different team nowadays, but they got Crone, who is a lefty masher. They got Scope, who over his entire career has hit lefties better. So they kind of just look for that. And a lot of that might be because of their park. Their park does favor right-handed power. So just FYI for anyone wondering. Oh boy, Roddy in the chat, man. Good to see you, Roddy. Roddy says, "What's up, fellas? Top 3 pitchers on DraftKings."
So for me, it's gonna be Fulte, Waka, and I guess it's Glass now.
I'll go Glass now, Josh James, and Adrian Houser. No, if I'm gonna say it in order, it's Josh James, Adrian Houser, then in Glass now. No problem, Roddy. He said he missed it. He missed part of the show because he's dealing with the kids. It's all good because we didn't do top 3s anyway, bro. Let's do some Dong Watch though before we get out of here because we're doing good on time. Anyway, we'll do some Dong Watch, man. Who's going yard?
Pete Alonso.
Love that call. I'm gonna go with Michael Conforto.
Nice. I'll take Javi Baez.
Oh yeah, I like that. I'll go with Nick Castellanos.
Nick Castellanos?
Yeah, the Casti. A good old cast iron.
And then I'll go with the White Sox play. I got a couple guys there, but I'm going to go with stand by. I think I'm going to let you one. I was all into the Philly bets today. It's unfortunate.
I know, dude. It was gone wild. That was crazy.
Let's see. Oh, you know what? I'll take Matt Adams.
Okay, I like that call. I'm gonna go with I'll go with Chris Bryant. Or should I? Yeah, I'll go with Chris Bryant. I'll take a guy from both sides. Let me ask you a question. The Houston Astros, right? That's probably the one team that has a high projected run total that you and I kind of both didn't really talk about, just kind of glanced over. I do have them as like a secondary stack and one team on each side. I think on FanDuel they just worked out that way, and on DraftKings I have like a 3-man that I have paired with a 5-man or something like that. They weren't a team like I thought they were going to be kind of popular, and maybe they will be. They just weren't really like I'm cool with them. I just like these other spots better. Where are you at with the Astros right now?
Kind of exactly the way you worded it. Like I'm cool with them, but I don't know. I'm not that thrilled. Like I can play George Springer anytime. You know what I mean? And like Correa, Brantley, Gurriel, like they're all right, but I just like other things better. What's the projected ownership saying out there anyway for them?
That's a good question, man. Let me pull up this ownership type shit. This ownership type shit. So I'm seeing that the most players right out the gate. I'm seeing JD and Benintendi as the 2 highest owned. I see Pete Alonso third, Bogart. So look, I would guess this means that the Red Sox are probably the chalk stack just because there's so many players. I actually see a lot of Reds players after that. I see Suarez, I see Castellanos. So basically in terms of games, it seems like mostly Boston, a little bit of Mets, mostly Cincinnati, a little bit of Cubs. Or Cincinnati and the Cubs are probably more split, but those seem like the more popular games. So I mean, George Springer is the first player I found from Houston. They have him down at 13%. The highest owned player is JD Martinez at 33%. So just to give you kind of a scale, there's a lot of players in between him. So it sounds like Houston may go a little under the radar, actually.
I would like grabbing some of like the guys towards the bottom, like Reddick or Kyle Tucker. I like Kyle Tucker a bit. You know, I mean, he's like one of those flashy rookies that you burn yourself on, but. Lately in baseball, these guys come up, like Yohan Moncada or Ronald Acuna. They're just good right out the gate nowadays. So he's a rookie that I like the talent profile on quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. And in fact, it's funny you mentioned Reddick. I have Reddick in a team on DraftKings because he's $2,700. That's just disrespectfully cheap. Not that I care. Fuck him. I don't care. I can get 2 fucks, but. Just for the sake, I'm just saying, right? Like that is extremely cheap. It's funny. Patio Joe makes a really good point on the Astros. I'm pretty sure he's talking about the Astros, but he's saying that the Astros are going to end up being popular on FanDuel because you have so much money to work with, and they're the only really expensive stack that teams by default are going to end up playing the Astros. That's a really good point for FanDuel specifically. That's a really good point. For the Joe Meister, Patio Jizzo. I don't see anything else. I mean, real quick, guys. Well, Aaron Lambert asked the top 3 FanDuel pitchers. We'll answer that in a second. Real quick, though, if you haven't already hit the like button, guys, please hit that like button. Really helps us out. Allows us to continue to do the free content. We enjoy talking, hanging out with y'all. But you got to work with us. Please hit the like button. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe. We do streams for MLB Monday through Friday. We're going to be doing streams for NBA Monday through Friday. And, of course, the NFL will be covering as well. So make sure you hit the like button, subscribe. We cover a multitude of other sports, too. So don't miss out on the free shit. With that said, Paulie, top 3 pitchers for FanDuel. Is it any different?
Yeah, I like Trent Thornton a lot on FanDuel. Folty once again. And probably Glasnow.
Holla. Yeah, for me, it's probably not any different. I guess I would still go Josh James. And FanDuel is the site where, I think you have to be prepared to definitely leave some money on the table if you want to pitch the guys that you want. For show. With that said, I think that's going to do it for this show. I don't see any other questions in there. So we got about 10 minutes to lock for FanDuel. You got another like fucking hour for lock for DraftKings. Hopefully, if you need some help and you're subscribed to wisehake.com, we could bullshit around the Slack and whatnot. But no sense in beating a dead horse. I think we discussed what we want to discuss. Paulie, anything in closing before we get up out of here?
No. Good luck. Do thy dirty. We'll catch you tomorrow. NBA 3 days away.
That's it. For Paulie D, for myself, the entire White Steak Nation, as always, good luck.
Look.